Several of these episodes have been hard to even approach, and I end up starting the camera believing that if I at least just open my mouth, I'll find my way to saying words that'll end up making sense and covering the broad topic that I'm trying to cover. This is one of those episodes that's hard to do. I'm not sure how to do this one, other than a loose outline. It's one of the heavier ones. So I'll say again, as I've said occasionally before, if you're just entering your own deconstruction process, you may want to go back to earlier episodes before you dive into this. This episode may give you some language to articulate some of your experience. But there are also some things today that you're not going to be able to unhear once you hear them. So I leave it up to you to decide whether to dive into the deep end. Let me start with a verse from Matthew 7. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then will I declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. I wonder if any of you wondered what to make of that when hearing it in Sunday school. I never knew you. And then wondering, does this mean anything besides reading my Bible? Is that what it's supposed to mean to know Christ? As you know, if you've been with me from my previous episodes, the thing that came loose and set everything else unraveling for me was recognizing that while I had a belief system that I could try to hold on to, I didn't have what I could call a connection. It seemed hard ultimately to substantiate a Christian faith when the God at the top of it all seemed unreachable, and the relationship that people talked about seemed sometimes to be real to others, but not to be real to me. I've talked about how some people will very much want to stick to the scriptures and not be all about personal experience. But ultimately, to me, I thought, if we don't have this, we don't have anything. You can follow ancient wisdom, but you wouldn't really say that that's exclusively found in the Christian faith. You can glean ancient wisdom from many sources, and you can see the fruit of living wisely, but then you see this love and this power, life-transforming power, in the scriptural accounts. And I don't know about you, but that's not what I've seen in church culture, and it's not what I've experienced in my many years in the church. I didn't know what to expect when starting this series on my YouTube channel. I didn't expect to be making so many installments of this. And whatever you agree or disagree on, I hope you can appreciate, and I'm sure you can recognize, that this whole subject is something I've given a lot of deep and enduring attention to, because I have felt stuck in ways that follow me around throughout my life. And so I can never fully lay this aside for very long without coming back to it. So let's lay the groundwork for all that I'm going to dive into today. Some time back, a friend of mine was going through a divorce, and they shared with me that their little boy said something very interesting. He said he wasn't sure that there was even a God anymore. Isn't that interesting to hear from someone in their single digits, when up until that point they believed in a God? Isn't it something for someone like me who's getting closer to 40 to my own surprise, find my faith dissolving? And then see the same thing happen to a little person who's experiencing his family bonds coming apart. Could there be a deeply linked connection there between one's sense of stability based on their connection with their caregivers and one's sense of what the ultimate source of life, the creator, the whatever you want to call it, is, and what your relationship can be to that entity? If I'm honest, that concept was pitched to me years and years ago. That idea that your connection with your mother and father is something that you end up projecting onto God, and that really informs the way that you will see God and the way that you will relate with God as, for instance, a loving father or not. I don't know why these are so good to me. They're like flavored plastic. But let's take that concept and let's rewind together and see if we can find something that we missed before when it comes to making sense of growing up in a church that taught us that a loving God ruled this universe, only to find ourselves doubting the legitimacy of anything that we were taught. Because as I have told you from the beginning, while I have had my own critique of the church, of church culture, and even of the Bible, my personal stance is not an antagonistic stance so much as it's an unconvinced stance. And for me, it reached a point where logic and reason were not enough, and that there had to be a heart connection and instinctive spirit connection in order for this faith system, these beliefs, to be rooted in anything, to be rooted, not just to be ideas to organize yourself around. I want to say, before I go any further, a lot of what I have to say with this is me connecting dots based on my experience. There will be a little bit that I will cite sources for, especially because if you find that the dots I'm connecting apply in your life as well, it will be good for you to have resources as a starting point for exploring this and figuring out what it means for you moving forward and how to navigate this process. So how about we take a look at a little checklist. Ask yourself if this has typified your life. Now, when I ask things that are about childhood, I hope you won't get frustrated with yourself if you find that you can't remember very well. Some of these are still going to be useful questions for you to consider, even if you can't bring specifics to mind from early childhood, for instance. It'll be enough to check in with yourself and see, do I generally feel this way or do I not? Even if that has more to do with your sense of things in recent years than it even does with early memories. I think these are the sort of questions that you'll be able to answer for yourself, even if you have to answer instinctively rather than feeling able to do short answer questions that require some sort of concrete memory to be shared. So first one, do you get a little uneasy when you have to be apart from your phone? Do you feel strange, maybe even anxious, when you're not able to be connected with whatever device gives you notifications from the outside world to let you know that somebody notices you or is touching base with you or is sending you something? Do you find that you rely on entertainment to help regulate your mood? Do you find that you'll be more likely to go to your favorite show than you will to go to a family member if you need to calm yourself down or decompress at the end of a day? Do you find it much easier, to the point of being automatic, to put in your earbuds and listen to whatever music suits you in any given moment, rather than going to a loved one to share what's on your heart or to share what's on your mind? And before I go any further, let me acknowledge that I know these might sound like strange questions, especially if your gut level response is, why is he asking these things? That's everybody. That's 21st century America. I've been trying to make sense of my experience for a very long time. I have really tried for years and years to grow in whatever ways I saw I needed to grow, to focus on the right things, to make some kind of change that would resolve the emptiness that I've carried inside of me for my whole life. And here's where I have to mention that I have a feeling this episode is going to be useful for connecting the dots, as I said. I'm not sure just where the overlap will begin and end, because I'm aware that at this point we're getting into the territory of building a psychological profile for kids who grew up in fundamentalism. I'm not certain, not certain about much, but I'm not certain that my experience is going to overlap with yours. But let's just put it this way, I'm not going to be surprised if some of you find that it overlaps to a startling degree. And if it does, we can talk about it. Or you can at least kind of have a starting point for how to navigate it. Not yourself, not on your own. I would suggest you get connected with someone, whether it's friends that have been through similar things, want to come out the other side of this kind of nowhere place, or finding a therapist that you trust to work through these deeper things, because it is a deeper thing. I'm in a place right now where I don't even, I can't seem to even process these things on paper. It's like I have to just start the camera and find my way to the words, because I've just been in a haze with some of this stuff, and I have to surface it because it's getting in the way of me functioning normally. And I hope that means that I'm prepared to turn a corner with some of these things that I've just been carrying forever. Whatever it means, I'm going to share it, and we will see what comes of it.